5 minutes after 10. One of the issues discussed in the personnel issue was a very important one, is Libby's 6-month probation period was up. Brief discussion on performance and et cetera. No decisions made towards anything in regard to that. Only performance discussion on that particular personnel in this office. Leaves it to the board at this time to see whether they want to take her off the probation, whether they feel that it's satisfactory, and whether she's eligible for a wage increase. I'll put it before the board as to what they wish to do in that matter.
I move that Libby be taken off probation and given an increase in pay of 3%.
I second that.
Okay, motion made with a second. All those in favor give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, so ordered. Congratulations, Libby.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Okay, there was no decisions on the other issues that were brought further. There was discussion. There was personnel issues today where they're at the present time. I'd like to get this meeting over with, but the Pottikers have, Karen has asked for further issues pending what was discussed at the executive session, that she felt it didn't belong to the floor. I wholeheartedly agree with it. At this point, what else do you have, Karen, for you and your group?
Okay, Jim, would you like to come up with me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to present these to you guys. I know Solicitor Wagner is not here. This is for you guys to look at. This is concerning the 2 appeals for DePerk and for the Morrison information, that both of these were lost by the township. I wanted to bring it to your attention, if you look at the 2 papers here from the court, you will note in the bottom, in the distribution section, on each one of those areas, if you take a minute and just review that.
Yes.
Okay.
Sam.
I want it to be in record that the Board of Supervisors is not on the distribution list, even though they are the appellate. Appellee? Okay, so this, I feel, is one of the key points in which the township would have a potential possibility for an appeal of the current situation with Morrison. That's one of the points that was brought out. This would be on a technicality issue, and I'm sure that you will be briefed by Mr. Wagner and his concerns with that from my attorney. The second issue, which I will, if you look, it is of a time-sensitive nature, only because of the date of the conditional use hearing application. It was potentially thought that we may have 2 years from that date to file an appeal.
I'm really not sure of that, Karen.
I know. I just wanted it to, that's why, you know what I mean, I'm sure you need to speak with Solicitor Wagner concerning those things. Thank you. Item 2 that I'm going to present contains minutes and information concerning a hearing that was done here on November 29, 2012. And it is of my opinion that we were witnesses thereof of that hearing. And Morrison, who is the appellant, I believe, did not let us know in a form of a letter following those proceedings. So none of us, I'd like you all to stand up and state if any of you that were at that hearing on November 29th that were sworn in. Jim, were you sworn in at that hearing?
I was sworn in.
Did you get a letter from Mr. Morrison's attorney?
I did not.
I, Karen Pottinger, I was sworn in, and they're in the notes there. I did not get a letter from Mr. Morrison's attorney of the... Is there anybody else that's present?
I don't know if I was here that day. I really.
Okay, okay, okay. So 2 of us are here that were at that hearing. We did not get letters from...
Karen.
Mr.
I was there then.
I thought you
You
were.
were, were you sworn in at that hearing?
Yes.
And
You signed in, so.
will you stand up and tell them if you got a letter from Morrison's attorney following?
No, I didn't get any letter from Morrison.
Okay. There's meeting minutes that I highlighted there for you, following the court, or I'm sorry, the hearing process that were put into record as well following the hearing by this board. Item 3 that I'm going to pass out to you, I am going to do it in 2 stages. This is concerning secretary issues, and I'm not going to go into much detail concerning that, but I want to put it into record that I sent the township certificate of mailings with a letter with my concerns following an attempt to find out what was going on here concerning the Morrison information. Item 3 also is going to include a statement from a text message, which I got permission from the supervisor on this board, in which to present that Helen did not inform him of my attempts to get to you guys about the time-sensitive issue that we are faced with. Mr. Chrisman, I need you to step forward again, please.
I'm here.
Is that your telephone number on the top there of this message?
No,
This one right there.
3070424 would be myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on May 5th, 2014, Mr. Chrisman, did you come into this office and ask Secretary if they got anything or information on an appeal from the Morrison?
I did come into the office.
Can you tell them what took place there, please?
I asked the secretary if there was any information pertinent to the
Appeal.
appeal from the county level. Okay, that Mr. Morrison evidently they agreed to. And Helen told me she didn't know anything about it until she read some sort of a paperwork, that she didn't know anything, she couldn't give me any information on it.
And I'll put that into record that that was done on May 5th, 2014, date and time when Mr. Chrisman contacted me, that Helen was not aware of anything regarding, anything having to do with appeal from the county on Morrison. I'd like to represent their meeting minutes from November 27th, 2013. At that point in time, meeting minutes haven't been posted on a regular basis, and to my lack, or otherwise, I was not aware of Penn Voice actually posting things online until recent meetings, which I was able to actually locate certain things. Meeting minutes started to appear, but I'd like to put it into record that on November 27, 2013, the meeting minutes don't actually represent correctly from the board side, because Helen Kleinpeter made a response concerning John Fickus's information there, that this was the first that she actually received notification about this court decision that came and was presented to the board.
Just for clarification for the recording, it's Jim Fickle.
Or Jim Fickle, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Or is it Fickle?
Fickle.
Fickle, okay.
Fickle.
Yeah. And at that meeting, Solicitor Wagner was not here. Cece Novinger was here, and I believe Brian Peters was, or I'm sorry, Brian McGuire was here for that meeting as well. The next page continues with minutes on December, if you turn,
But it was clear in that meeting that Ms. Nottinger and Mr. McGuire both agreed that they were not of knowledge of any of this, correct?
that is correct.
Okay.
The board was not notified at that point in time prior to Jim Fickle coming in. In the December minutes, this was supposed to be reviewed, brought back in there, in which the board then did another discussion concerning the same issues. Supervisors were present for that meeting as well, and so was the secretary. So I'm entering into record under this item 4 put together that Secretary Helen had lied to the public on something that she knew was actually forth, that really did happen, and she chose to not tell us. Okay, I'll continue. Any questions or concerns so far from the board?
Any questions from a member of the board?
Item number 5, same issue, Secretary. We did some research on the advertising issues in both cases, on the DeBerk and Morrison. This is what we recovered from the Duncannon record. And these were things that were put in from a period of time. I don't know if it was enough period of time. I'm not really aware of the time frame in which the advertising actually was done, or the 60-day period prior to, but we did a 3-month investigation.
And the issue on this, Karen?
What's that?
I said the issue on this.
Well, we couldn't find anything that was advertising it for DeBerk
Okay,
or the trials for.
okay.
So in our search, could you please, Lamar, stand up for a minute? Please tell him your name, tell him what you asked and what you did to recover
Well,
that
I called,
information.
advertising up in, New Bloomfield and asked them, the woman's really nice from the dates, what it was, November, no wait,
You want me to get him out for you?
yeah, give me the paper,
Okay,
I can't remember.
yep, that's fine. Just bear with me, please, as I recover that for you.
It was from, December 12th, 2013 to February 13th, 2014. It would have been 10 weeks, and that's what the woman sent me back. There was, for Penn Township advertising of the appeal on the Morrisons, and that's what the woman sent me. There were 3 different papers. I don't know, that one that had 10 pages, I don't think that has anything to do with it. But the 3 papers is what she sent me, so that's what I gathered. So,
For 2013?
2012,
2014, I'm sorry.
2013.
2013 to 2014.
They wouldn't have been advertised in 2013.
What was the date?
The hearings would have been advertised in 2012.
In 2012.
Would it?
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll research that.
Oh, I'm
because
sorry, that was wrong.
There was
Whatever.
just some information, we were trying to locate them and we were stuck. So we'll go back through and submit other information. So the next situation, concerning the same issue, secretary issues, was DEP modules. Found out in concerns to our May meeting that it was brought up by other members of the audience that there were DEP modules that were received that were not sent out to Morrison certified mail upon receipt of the township. Cece, would you mind?
I do have the two letters that were sent to Morrison. One is dated March the 13th, 2013, telling him that the approved DEP module had been received and he had 180 days to be connected. That was not sent out to him in a timely manner. That went back and forth. I do not have the paper right here to tell me the date that it was sent. That jeopardized his 180 days, which actually pushed it into August, August the 14th. Should have been in July. So there were
Okay,
there
so
was
we're-
a delay in that process as well.
to make a timely response back forward there. So that'll end our secretary issues for the moment. So our concerns now are about the building for Morrison along the state road. And we're gonna move into that to keep the meeting moved along. We'd like to ask the board, what plan did Mr. Morrison actually show to the township that he agreed to follow? Obviously, when you submitted the plan, you agreed to the terms of the plan. So I want to know, what plan did Mr. Morrison actually agree to the township concerning those buildings that he put up? And how did the township approve anything without a sewer module in place? If you could please respond.
Well, Karen, you asked some difficult questions, but I'll answer them the best I can. And I absolutely know where you're coming from on that particular question, because it's a question I've raised myself. How did I allow myself to get in this mess? So the responsibility lies within the Board of Supervisors here. At the time, Mr. Morrison made an appeal here with another supervisor, was wholeheartedly very strong in granting him what he needed to put footers in to beat the winter weather. And that issue was tossed back and forth. He had no sewer module. He had nothing there. It's uncustomary. You as a homeowner want to build a house would not be allowed to do that. Exactly. Solicitor Wagner ruled against that. If I remember correctly, if I think that you'll find that they took that and made a plea. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if you go back and find that even the planning commission said that they thought it would be okay, and there was an awful lot of trust being put into a resident that wanted to build in Penn Township and not to hold him up. The issue was the same as took place before in the township. Against the solicitor's advice, the supervisors said, yep, I guess, in plain words, we'll take a choice, we'll take a chance. He was given a permit on the condition of a contract, was he not, Helen?
Yes, he was.
Yes, sir, to comply, which he never complied with any of it. He just ignored it. And once he got the permit to put footers in, he just built the building and done what he wanted. And work with him what you could, and as much as you could. It's been a long, drawn-out process, I think, since 2008 to bring enforcement to bear on him, that he's finally doing what he's doing now. To answer your question, where was the board wrong? You wouldn't do that for a homeowner. But there was a church built out here in 849 that came in with that same request. And Solicitor Wagner sat here and said, don't do it. Don't give them a building permit to start it. They don't have their sewer module in place. And that was a complex, not a simple situation with that sewer module out there. And the reason why everybody wanted to know was why, and some people don't understand this, was if the sewer module don't come back as what they submitted, and that church spent a lot of money in it, and they couldn't give what they wanted, they lost that money, either tear it down because they couldn't proceed any further. They took a chance, the Board of Supervisors, by trying to work with someone, took a chance, allowed that to happen. Now, you would like to think that the church was honorable in what they were going to do, and they were. They continued with their building. They got started in cold weather. They had a deadline to meet. And the module came through in fine order later on. Based on doing that once, that I know of in the township, I thought, I set a precedent, I was part of that. And instead of saying no, in this particular case, we thought we had an individual here that we could believe, we could trust, and it would work out. Sorry, folks, it didn't happen that way. So we granted him a permit, only to put footers in, to get him in before cold weather, and he took off from there and done what he wanted. Cost the township an awful lot of money, legal fees, paperwork, township secretary's time, ever since that, to get us where we're at the point today. If you were here last month, Rich Delaney laid out these 10 items, or these items, and you're either gonna do them or you're gonna get booted. It's a shame that it had to come to that. It's a shame that it had to be forced into that. That's what you get for trying to work with people, help people, and get something done. It's just like I explained to an awful lot of people, you get AORs and conditional uses, or you get, trying to think of the other AORs, how on the.
Variance.
And variances, on their plans. It's great to grant them. And the reason you grant them is because the planning commission takes a look at it. Maybe it's not something that great, but it is not with what's in our saldo or our planning. And so they take a look at it and say, look, this guy wants to agree to this, let's grant it. So they make a recommendation for those AORs, come before the board, we take a look at them, we approve them. Bingo, he's got a plan approved. Oh boy, I'm gonna do what I want to now. Now I'm not gonna follow him now. I don't have to do that. And if he can drag it out over a 2-year period, we can't make him comply. And many's the time, and I can tell you what, there's argument on the floor still about some of them, there's still ongoing what happened back at a period of time with that. The township becomes the enforcer, or has to follow, has to spend time, has to go out and take a look to see that that contractor is doing what he said he would do. I've experienced that right up in here on Lincoln Street, up in a house up there by the cemetery where they put the place in, they did not do what they wanted to, they flooded Duncannon residents, they had mud, never mind what all took place. Yeah, I didn't make no friends by going up telling them that they had to comply, and finally took a lawyer to get them that they had to comply, and they had to send a zoning officer out. You don't like to do that, it's all because the people agree to one thing and don't want to do another. That's the case of Mr. Morris's case here, Karen. The township was in error in granting that in the first place without having a sewer module in place. I agree, and I will not deny that precedent should be followed, because one worked and one didn't.
I'd just like to enter into item 6, which is the municipal authority minutes, just for reflection on this process. It's an ongoing thing, even currently. I have the last 3 months I stopped in and met with Secretary Helen and picked them up recently to present here to the board, in case you haven't seen them because they haven't been online. Can the board please,
Right all the way through.
if you want to just take a minute and look at that, that's fine.
I'm well familiar with what that's all about. what
Okay,
took place.
okay.
Just
Well, my
glance
next-
at it, I can
The
tell.
next question I have is, there was talk concerning Mr. Morrison and current permits. Have some questions for the board about these permits. Now, is he applying for new permits currently to continue building? Or is he just catching up with old permits that he never came in and applied for now? Or is it a little bit of both, and if you could expound on what they are?
Some are old permits he never applied for, he never got help.
Correct. The barn, he
Yep.
applied for a zoning
Just went ahead without.
and a building permit. The zoning permit, the zoning officer has approved it, it has not been issued yet. The building permit, Mr. Hollenball is reviewing it. He said he would have that up to me to next couple days.
Which building are you talking about?
The barn.
Okay.
He did not get a permit when he first started going in and doing things.
Okay.
We also shut him down at that point. what he calls the mechanical building. He had a permit, like Henry said. He did not renew it or come in and expand on it. He is going for a new permit for the items that have not been completed. I did give Mr. Hollenball what had been inspected by Glaze Associates. I gave that information to Mr. Hollenball. And that's where we're at with that
Do you have a
one.
number of permits that Mr. Morrison had to actually apply for to get himself back to code here? Moving forward?
Since the cease and desist?
Yeah,
3.
3 permits for that.
Yeah, it'd be zoning for the barn,
Mhm.
the building permit for the barn, the building permit for the mechanical, because the zoning was already approved for that.
Okay.
And
Are there any other permits that he recently needed to get caught up on as well?
occupancy, which we were talking about earlier,
Okay,
I'm losing my, no, that's the wrong one.
Was there also a sewer permit?
Yes, just let me pull this thing out here real quick. No, come on, where is it? Just getting the, come on, I know you're in here. Where you gonna have it? Cease and desist letter is what I'm looking for. Oh, that's the line I used to fill, I'm sorry. The wrong one. I'll take it over there. Here we go. Land use. There it is. Yes, this is it. He had to get the zoning permit for the barn. He had to get the building permit for the barn. He had to obtain an occupancy for commercial vehicles off of Quail Trail.
I thought you said agriculture over there today.
Pardon?
You guys said agriculture over there today, not commercial. So you're saying he's applied for a commercial?
No, he has
vehicle?
not applied. He has not applied. We said he needed to apply for one for commercial vehicles.
Why would we don't want him to apply for it, because then if he gets it, then he can drive commercial vehicles up there.
just wait, let Helen finish her permit list, and then I want to come right back to you about that issue.
Okay.
We'll address that to the board directly.
Okay, yeah, that one, he failed to obtain the occupancy permit for the mechanical. Let's see, go over here, okay. Zoning, building for the barn, occupancy for the, mechanical, occupancy permit for Quail Trail. He failed to renew the 2010 building permit for the mechanical building, which he did the applications, and those were it. That was on the cease and desist. So 1, 2, 3, yes.
What was his response to the requirement to get the highway office permit for?
That response was for, let me find where I put that. Cease and desist. He sent a letter in saying, "We do not intend to use the access off of Quail Trail for commercial purposes. Therefore, we do not feel we need to obtain a HOP, highway occupancy permit. We have not used this with the exception of one time approximately a year and a half ago. The farmer who is farming the property does use it for farming access. That has not been decided whether it is acceptable for the cease and desist or not."
So it's 8+ permits, if I was counting correctly.
1, 2,
Maybe even more.
2, 3, 4, 5, 5.
5 permits, okay, I'm sorry.
That we
Matt.
know of.
Matt, if you would then present your question to the board, please.
I guess my question now is why would the township recommend that he get an occupancy permit for Quail Trail with commercial vehicles when we were sitting here last month stating that we don't want commercial traffic on that road? And then you're saying in that letter, the permits that he needs, you're asking him to apply for one. Now, granted, he said, we don't intend to use it that way, but if he just would've went through and got the permit like you guys asked him to, then he'd have it. And he could drive commercial vehicles right through whenever he wanted. So why, I guess my question is, why would you ask him to get something that
in the cease and desist, we had to tell him what he was in violation of. And he was in violation of not obtaining a permit, okay?
He wasn't in violation because he wasn't using it at the time.
That was,
Commercial vehicles. So he wasn't in violation of it, but by you asking him to get one, then you're opening the door.
that came directly from
Am I
Rich.
correct in stating that?
There's an issue there on that thing that I may as well tell you my thoughts on that, and I've conveyed that to a lot of people. I think when one time he come in there and limed, and you guys had a terrible mess, and he come in there with a truck in there, did you not?
Yeah.
Okay, so he limed that field there. I could never understand why you would take a lime truck up there, go through that development, up that steep hill, one way.
I think we all know why.
Okay, yeah, okay. When you got a good access off of 1115, wide, plentiful, all this trying to force this opening down should be coming in off of 11 and 15. That has to be answered to me before I would yield, by golly, to the reason to give a permit in there, I'll tell you that. He has the access. He has a good proper road. He takes those big drill rigs up there. Why would he want to harass the people in that development, if that's what it is or isn't? I don't know. Why would you want to use that and come around King Cora with large farm equipment, where you shut the whole road down practically, to get up through a development, to get back into that piece of ground? I don't understand that. It is something that has to have some reason in place doing that. When the access is with no permit. An occupancy permit from the state permits him to get into that in a much easier manner that does not disturb the people that live in those homes. To me, I don't understand why. But that's something that has to be answered in my mind, why you don't do that.
I've never been back there. I mean, I haven't been over to his place. With all his stuff sitting there, he might not be able to get in that field, because I think he would know. I think he has a fence all over
Well, he
there.
goes-
I'm not sure.
Well, it's been discussed
I'm just
before, he has a road that our officers and stuff and the zoning officers can go up over that hill and drive clear back to the barn and the
Okay,
cornfield.
I don't know.
Yeah, he has the access.
Okay.
I question that on taking the equipment back there, to get it up there, why it has to be that way. So, yes, I know what you're saying, I know what they're saying there, but it hasn't come to pass yet. But that's one of the issues I think would have to be resolved before you do that.
Where do you guys stand on granting something like that to open up Quail Trail for?
Well, I guess when it comes to granting something, it becomes the legal issue, by golly, whether you can deny it. And if there's something built into our zoning and our saldo and it's not covered by it, then you have a tough time if he applies for it, if he's in his legitimate rights to say no. And I would not be foolish enough to do that if he were allowed to do that, just like.
But he's done everything else ahead of,
Well,
Without
and
permission anyway.
that's what I'm saying, Kent, you have to realize that it isn't something that don't go unnoticed or isn't being watched at the present time. I don't think there was anybody that lived in there would want that particular type of traffic that we're talking about coming up through there. And I could realize that. Some of that stuff, for whatever be done, but there's still some open ends there left on that problem.
Is it true that he may at some point need a second, I guess, emergency exit from that property?
Well, I'm not sure as to whether that's come into place yet.
Mr. Wagner said he definitely has to have one. I remember that.
For what?
For whatever reason.
Maybe a development or something like
Have to
that.
have two entrances for,
Yeah,
I
then
guess,
you're
for fire
talking.
and emergency.
But right
whatever.
now, it's all cornfield.
I know that, yeah. I
Yeah,
know that.
and that's, so that would be, if there was a development plan filed and whatnot, that would all come into play. That'd be.
What about his commercial building back here? What about that? That's commercial.
Well,
We'll get to that.
Okay.
yeah, go
Let's
ahead.
just stay on this.
Can-
Mr. Christmas.
Can he have the right to ask for?
I have a few issues that I
Hold on,
want
Jim,
to
hold on.
cover, if you will.
Please, one at a time.
Please
Oh, are
don't.
you talking?
yeah.
I just wanted to
He
ask,
couldn't
based
hear.
on that conditional use
Yell at me.
of the building, can he ask for access off of the road?
Well, the conditional use that he's got on the building, you'll have to understand, permits him to put commercial stuff in there instead of agriculture stuff. Nothing else, there was no zoning change. What that was, and I saw the paperwork here tonight on the hearing, he applied for that back there to put other equipment in there other than agriculture equipment. That's what this is all about. It was denied because the equipment he wanted to put in was not agricultural use equipment. It wasn't drill rigs, it wasn't tractor trailers and stuff. And so that portion of it was denied, and the solicitor, as he interpreted everything there, am I not correct, Helen? Saw that would be upheld and whatnot. Unfortunately, we lost it because of this glitch. But-
Did you guys even show up?
So at the present time, he can't do anything else back there. He can't put a building in there. He can't put the offices in there at the present time. All we can do is put non-commercial material, non-agriculture material in that building. Now, he submitted a plan way back, and he got some issues there, parking and et cetera, hell, and the old original plan and whatnot he submitted, you know. There's some other issues that you're taking a look at that's gonna come into play with the commercial building if he wants to put it back there. He has to have a parking lot, handicap. There's an awful lot of things that comes into play with that back there, am I not correct?
Yes.
It's nothing that hasn't been looked at on this side of the board, folks. Watching it close as I possibly can. If the man has rights, by golly, that says he can do this and that, and are granted by the court, I can't overturn that and have no desire to, or try to. But if there's something where you people are on the short end of the stick, well, then I feel for you too, and that's not right. The glitch at the present time, the problem we got right now, come from this township that was allowed to happen by default. Don't deny that. Don't deny that. Someone got something granted because of a mistake made by this township. And so the court says that. I can't go up there and tell Mr. Mumalt, hey, I don't like this, you know, I just can't do that. So he issued that, and what he has the use of, am I not correct, Helen?
Yes.
As I understand it, and I know it, is only to put non-commercial,
Agriculture.
no, he's not allowed to put, he can put agriculture in there, but at the present time, he is now allowed to put commercial equipment and stuff in there.
Yes, that's
Which
for his
prior to
request.
prohibit him from doing that.
Here's the meeting minutes from November 29th. We
according to
put
the
into
appeal
record
that was-
item 7 concerning what you're talking about right now. Mr. Morrison made a statement on page 2 there that it will only be for storage only on the second page of those meeting minutes. I've highlighted it for you.
Let's do 2012, as he recently submitted new permits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what he's recently done now puts this null and void.
Well, only because of the court decision. That's correct. That's correct. But that's what he stated at the front up there. And then that all changed. I mean, he had no problem with it up front because that's the way it was. Now because of a glitch of the township and the court order that came out, it says he's allowed to do that on the same thing that he said he wasn't gonna do.
Yeah.
Just that simple. Said he wasn't going to, but now that he's won it in the courts, he's going to.
If that's a glitch and an error on the township, then is the township gonna be willing to go back?
I guess that's a situation from what I think is this is leading to with the attorneys that will have to be resolved through the courts probably. We hear their plea that they feel that they got rights for an appeal and that's it. So when I said tonight, you know, when I hear attorneys are mentioned, I start to get a little uneasy because somebody's gonna spend a bunch of money somewhere, the township and probably these people. They feel they have their rights and the court's issued to us what the man can do. And if there was a glitch here in the township that they show that there's an appeal possible, then there'd be an appeal probably made. I can't control that. Just can't control that.
Mr. Chrisman's concerns were just answered about the road, so we'll move on to my
Okay.
next question to the board. Well, now that we're in this situation currently, until we resolve the issue whether or not the board is going to make the appeal, we would like to know what plans do you, the Board of Supervisors, have for future monitoring of the property to basically ensure that this will be used specifically and only for that purpose?
And that only purpose is putting commercial stuff in it at the present time that he's allowed?
Uh-huh.
Okay, and not finishing the heater, the offices, or et cetera in there?
Mhm.
Well, I guess that would be an answer for Solicitor Wagner as to what he would recommend, as to whether we take a monthly gander in there to take a look at it, where you're at, or maybe the board wishes to state something tonight as how often they think we should take a look at that.
Do you think that it would be probable, since we do have a police force, that the police force could potentially go in and be allowed to go in and visit this property, make sure that it's only being used for storage purposes, and then report back on a monthly meeting report as to their findings?
Well, Karen, I guess my thoughts on that, is like I tell our local police officers or anybody else, you're unwelcome at my place unless I invite you.
I think we have probable cause.
Unless you got a warrant for my arrest, you need to stay out.
I know, but I think the township
And he
has-
may have that same opinion, that he may have rights along that line.
But he's abused every right that he's had.
Well, I'm not gonna dispute that, I guess that's an answer for Mr. Pickles. Do you have the right to go back there, as you say it, Pickles, unless there's a complaint filed or something like that on a regular basis?
Well, if they've applied for permits, we would check, I would think,
That would give you the right, wouldn't it?
That should give us a
Just
right to
like
go
the,
inspect.
the-
You know what I'm saying?
If I
the
was
camper
building,
on the
if I was
property,
building,
she says that no one's living there, please, back and check, and we check on a regular basis
And
as we get calls, for people staying in
If
the
that's
camper.
the interpretation
I would
that he
think
has,
that-
and Rich Wagner will confirm that.
if
and
he
I
can
would put
stretch him, why can't we stretch him?
And I
Well,
put
I
that
don't
in
think
the
it'd be
form of a
stretching
motion.
them, but I think that would be something that, if we have a permit going on, we
Just to make sure he's
check the
complying with
progress
permit.
or whatever, and as we got complaints, it would be forwarded to us, and we went up to check to see if he had porta potties and stuff like that.
That would take something from this Board of Supervisors to say that we're gonna take a look at that then once a month, or once every 2 weeks.
Well, I think with the information that's been presented and in the past 2 years' progress with everything that's happened, I think the board should really take a look at this in-depthly and make some kind of provision in this circumstance, because it is a special circumstance. So I'll leave it at that. I would hope that you guys would take this to Solicitor Wagner and speak with him about this more directly, please.
Rather than you take a look at it, we're doing nothing, Karen, I will contact Solicitor Wagner on that specific matter as to where we would be right or wrong in order to monitor that he fulfills his obligation with these permits and nothing more.
Very good, thank you, sir.
Yes, Mr. Fickles, if she's done.
If you have the building codes and you have the different boards, why wouldn't you have inspectors going in to make sure the stuff's being done? Why would you send the police?
Well, eventually, there will be UCC code inspectors go in there at the time when you call for them and the need for it. This is something to monitor that above and beyond out there in that building out there, depends on what is done. You're not gonna have that out there, are we not, Helen?
Right,
He's
there's
not-
nothing currently being built, so
That's right.
right now it's just being used for storage, and that's what we verify, is just
That's what
that
you can
it's
verify.
still being used for storage. And the last time we checked, they had heated flooring being prepared to pour and everything else, so that was above and beyond what
Yeah.
he was supposed to do, and we went back and checked that, and actually there was even a plan on the chalkboard, exactly what was gonna happen there, which was not permitted at all.
Right, so this is, our concern is that this person is not following the rules and hasn't followed the rules. There needs to be some type of process in place set by the board because of what has happened in the past for this particular issue. So just like an adjustment to the regulations, we need one for him.
And I know what you're saying, without having a physical complaint or a complaint come in here, there needs to be some monitoring on it without you folks having to do that or making a complaint and there's nothing there. I said I'll run that by Solicitor Wagner as to what he recommends that we can go in there to take a look at. You also be ever mindful that I am very mindful about people's private property. I respect that highly, as I expect it to be respected on my behalf. And so let's not create something for ourselves by walking in there unwanted unless we're really warranted and able to do it.
I believe in the 3 strikes are out program,
Yeah.
Mr. Holman, so I think in this circumstances, he's had more than 3
Three
strikes.
I will
So-
follow up on that.
I'll move forward after that.
Okay?
Great. I just want to put item 8 into the board's hands. This is meeting minutes from May 7th. And you will note in those meeting minutes, I've highlighted a section there. If you take just a second to look that over, and then I'll proceed.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll also add this into record here with that item 8. There was, on Monday, June 16th, there was a planning commission meeting here, which I came to, and I made some requests concerning some issues that I see coming down the pipe. So this is sort of hindsight, but maybe we got a break. We had got conditional use on the barn, and I say that lightly, only, okay? At this point, a statement was made in those May 7th meetings by your solicitor about applying applications of issues raised from our concerns in those meeting minutes, and we were to stay tuned to these to be addressed at a later time. Okay? Well, that was from that date of those meetings. So we've been staying tuned. We've been lied to. We've been told that nothing was taking place. We've been told, we won the hearing here. Went up there was technical difficulties. The man didn't hook up a sewer thing on time, it's been extended. There's been all these things coming into play here. And at this point, we would like our concerns to be looked at. There is currently no zoning for buffer zones against ag property when commercial operations move in. And when I went to the planning commission meeting, I brought this up and I asked the question, is there any ag buffer zones? If you read in those minutes, they said, oh, they would put a couple trees about the size of little
All they
3-inch
have to do.
sticks, and that would be minimal, okay, against my ag property, okay, that adjoins this property. And in the future, I foresee other problems coming down the pike, maybe new zoning regulations, other things. So in the meantime, I want to address some of the issues forthcoming that we might have not addressed now so that we have protection in the future. So noise control is one of the issues that I'd like to address for commercial activities in Penn Township. Buffer zones to protect ag property that's already existing against other commercial operations moving in, and residential as well. Any,
Yes, Karen, you're correct on some of that, there's no doubt about that. There's provisions in there where the farmer, the agriculture guy can't build a barn so close, can't do certain things so close to a development. I don't deny that that's maybe a little bit lopsided in there. I brought that to the attention of the planning commission. It is something that they said that they would take a look at. We'll see whether it goes unanswered or not. It is something that I've often looked at. I had to deal with some of that myself, and I had to deal with it in a realistic manner as to what our subdivision and our zoning had, that it was not worth getting involved or making a fuss about. I'm not saying that in your case, but I'm going to use, for instance, when the group come in from New Jersey and wanted to develop back there. And they had plans right against my property line to backside their houses 15 foot away from my property line. And I could have houses up there the whole way up across, almost a half a mile linear line right against my property, 15 foot away, and nothing I could do about that because that was the backside of their property. Did I complain about it? Did I argue with the developers? I told the developers what I had to tell them was the truth. You meet the plans of the township, and I have no recourse. I have no other alternative but to sign those plans. Now, I've signed an awful lot of plans in this township, and I know that a lot of them affected other people by signing those plans. But they met the requirements, and I, as a supervisor, had no choice to sign those plans. Made a friend one way, made an enemy another. You're correct. There is no buffer for anybody for like that. So I often made the statement, and I told the Windsor Group, I told Solicitor Wagner and everybody else, and I made that public at a meeting. If you guys do that, you got the right to do it. I can't stop you. Do I want to see it? No. But irregardless of what come out of that, they met our plans. I could have that today. I did not complain, did not hold up no plan, did do nothing. They withdrew on their own. But to change that, to get more, they sued me for my place, and I'll never forget that. That don't make me bitter against developers or growth, but it is the type of thing that you have today of what we have, somebody wanting to do what they can do without meeting the rules, the regs, and the permits and the requirements of the township. We're dealing with the same thing right now on a smaller scale. I feel for your folks. I'll tell you one thing. You're only here for one thing. This township made a mistake in issuing that building permit for him to get started up front.
I disagree with you there.
Huh?
I disagree a little bit. I want to see that we, in the future, that people can actually be protected by ordinance that are put into
Yeah,
place.
I understand, but what opened this thing was maybe he would have complied and got his permit and been ready to do his storage and do all those before he done anything. But so by issuing that and trying to work with someone and do someone a favor and believe what they tell you is going to be the truth and they're going to fulfill it, is now from 2008 to now still ongoing. So I think the planning commissioner will probably take a look at that. I remember that request being made by a lot of people prior to signatory of the zoning going into effect. And the Board of Supervisors at that time, which I did not settle, turned that down flat. That there was no consideration for those people that had large parcels, preserved ground, or anything else. And the argument is going on presently over the Warden Group and that settler over there. That's still one of the issues there yet today. And in that particular plan, those issues yet to be resolved. I don't know. I think they're coming to an end. I think that it's going to get squared away. But I'm neither for or against that development. If they meet the requirements, I have to sign those plans. And not reluctantly, because that's the job that you have to do. You meet it, your requirements, and if those requirements change, just like you're asking, then you get something effect. You can't wave a magic wand and make it go away. You can only hope that the planning commission is gonna work on it.
Okay, and then.
That's all I can offer as any satisfaction.
And then the last concern is what type of development could actually go in behind there? Is it a possibility for Section 8 property development behind the existing development there?
That's a good question. That is a very good question.
There's been rumors spread by an employee. We want to stand up and share that there was a rumor that was.
Well, it is all it is a rumor, but it does raise concern. And after hearing it, it did make some sense, you know, because from what I understand, him dividing that land up to sell it to people that are gonna build houses, it has to be 2-acre lots now. So he's not gonna get that much, but if he was to put in something like subsidized housing and apartments, he's gonna get a lot more people on that land. Now, the rumor behind it was, by doing that, then if people didn't pay, he was guaranteed to get his money from the government. So rather than just put apartments or townhouses back there. So I wanted to, I guess, see if you've heard anything about that, or if you would be in support of something like that.
Well, Section 8 housing is something I guess I can honestly say is probably unfortunately allowed in the township. I'll keep my thoughts and comments to myself as to what comes with it because I've seen it.
And that's our concern.
And I'll leave it at that.
Now, it's, I think that most of that property right now is zoned R1, so
Mhm.
if it stays as is, then you can't put Section 8 onto R1, correct?
Mhm.
So it would take a zoning change for that to happen, and that would come down to the decision of you guys, correct? Would you support a zoning change if requested?
We've already been through that once and I didn't support it.
Okay.
And we lost.
And,
Yes.
okay, I just wanted to
That
see where
was,
everybody stands.
the zoning change request was upheld. On the change of that, to change the whole lot.
Yes.
The only thing we lost is on the building.
Right.
That's the only thing. There's been no zoning change here.
Right.
Let's not make it something that it isn't. There was a zoning request that was upheld and denied that it be granted for obvious reasons, you know what I'm saying? And that was upheld. What the request was to put different stuff in an agricultural building in an agricultural zone area, which was denied because it fell within the scope of our zoning and our saldo and everything else. And so we upheld what was in the ordinance. And because of a fault of the township here, we lost that. So now he has a right to put commercial equipment in there. And that's the only thing it is. Not commercial buildings or anything else or whatever, but that remains to shake out to see where you're at.
But there's no plans for the township to grant zoning changes for the rest of that property.
There's nothing at the time, they made no application for it or anything. There's nothing that I know of. If we upheld it once, I mean, that was through that process, you know what I'm saying? I haven't seen another application for it. Yes.
Okay, I'm at the lower end there. I guess the upper end don't hear all the noise that goes on. I believe he's supposed to, I think that building is supposed to be that tall building where he's supposed to really run his equipment in there. He doesn't really even, unless I can't see it, he has them outside and he's making all that noise. He don't even use that building, I don't think, the way it's supposed to be designed. Isn't he supposed to run his equipment in or run his rigs up in the air and grease them and all the freaking noise he makes? I mean, I can understand if he has two of them, but I don't even think he uses the building what it's supposed to be used for. That's what I see from over I am. And
Without
I'm like 200 yards away.
I couldn't confirm that he does or doesn't, but you're right, that was the intention, that was the
That's right,
request.
that's what it was for.
That was a request for him to put them inside
Right.
and in them out of the weather while he worked on them and done maintenance on them. That's correct. I heard him make that appeal. That's one of the things he needed to do. He needed a place inside in the cold weather. He needed to get it going to get in there to work on his equipment. That was part of it, yes.
Is there any
One of
other-
the, go, anything else, Karen?
Is there any other questions that anyone would have there?
Yes.
Why does it seem like he never gets punished for any of these, aren't the permits and stuff basically laws? Like he's literally breaking laws over and over and over again, there's no repercussions.
I guess unfortunately, I'd like to be able to wave that magic wand and things happen instantly. But I'm gonna refer back to the matter tonight, all the time we spent on the demolition of that building down there. And to run that through its proper procedure, how long did it take us from the time we decided to do that? To get everything in there, to give them all the time, to give them all the time frames, take it before the district justice. That drug on and on and on. And you would like to say, man, the township got the authority to tear it down and charge them for it. That is correct. But you just can't walk in and just do it without them having what they're entitled to and the time frame that they need. There was an awful lot of things. And then, just like tonight, Board of Supervisors backed off and left them off the hook, folks. Are they gonna get it done in 30 days? I'm afraid we're gonna have that to deal with next month again.
What can be changed here? Seems like something needs to be changed here to correct some of this stuff that's going on. What can you do different? You know what I mean, to,
Well, one of the key things I think I've heard here tonight, and the key issue is right now, someone's looking for some monitoring on what he's doing. And I promise you, from what Pickles said there, if they want to go in there, or police officers want to go in there, if Mr. Wagner says that we can do that in regard to following up these permits, or monitoring him after the permits are honored or into effect, to see that he's not doing anything else, I will find that out for you. I'd be glad to make a motion on the condition tonight that that go into effect if the supervisors would. I think that's important. We need close monitoring on what's taking place there. I don't disagree.
If I could just add something to kind of answer a question there of why isn't this followed up, what can we do? We have the same problem down at Ward's property. We fought about that fence, and I would never order anything from the company he ordered that fence from because he still says it's on back order. It's been how many years? That's why I hated conditional uses, because there's no follow-up. People agree, oh yes, approve my plan, and I promise I'll do those 9 things. And they'll do 1 or 2, and that's all they do.
just enough
And
to get their
there's
foot in the
no
door.
enforcement, no follow-up, that they have followed through and did what they said they would do.
That's what it
And
seems like.
where does that fault lie that there's no follow-up? And we not only don't follow up, we don't enforce that they didn't do it.
I guess
And
that's exactly where I'm at on that matter tonight, Cece, as to what happened to this thing once the injunction was filed and was put in the system. Why hadn't it moved away up here in New Bloomfield? What's happened? So that issue was raised today. As a matter of fact, I brought that up to Helen today. I said, you get a hold of Rich, I want to know where it's at. Well, we got Ward and Warden messed up there. Rich told me, he said, hey, he said, I'm telling you, I pulled out the wrong plan. I said, well, it's in the minutes last month, Rich, that you were gonna check into it. Just approved minutes tonight, he said that.
Over
Yes.
and over and over and over.
Yes.
And I thought there was money always held back on all these projects, and insurance companies that ensure that these things are gonna happen. I mean, any project I ever done in the township, you know, I gotta give you
Escrow, yeah.
$5,000, $10,000. You call me up and say, we spent your 10,000, we need more money. Not complaining, but I mean, where's the Marston project? Did he ever give you all money that if he didn't finish what he was doing, did he have insurance company backing that you could?
Helen, the original agreement was for what, for 10 grand?
For 10 grand
For
with
10
the,
grand?
with the building permit,
Pardon?
yes.
10 grand, for the building permit, you know what I'm saying? And when we finally got to the point he wasn't doing anything and we enforced that to that point, then he went ahead and filed his plan and done what he needed to do in his plan, Stanley, enough to make that contract go away, that the 10 grand went away.
Yes.
Looks to me like it ought to be higher.
Well,
Well,
and-
there's also the letter of credit on the
but
land development
that-
plan.
That is exactly what was done there. He played us for that all the way through. That was in front because he got that building permit according to an agreement with the 10 grand back up there, was it not, Helen?
Yes.
Yes, sir. And when we finally pushed that issue, quit believing him, you pushed that issue, then he met what he did and he finally got at and filed, had the meeting over here with them where they wanted to talk to you privately and et cetera with his attorney and whatnot, which changed around from that room to the night I got over here. And that was in regards to the DEP module. And he said he wouldn't get that for 6 months or longer to hold him up. Send it in. He got it real quick because they wanted to see it done too. And so he met the requirements on that original portion of it, and that original agreement and the contract and the 10 grand you're talking about putting up went away, did it not?
Yes.
Helen?
Yeah, I was here at that meeting. that night.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened there, Stanley, to answer your question.
Can I say one
Yep.
thing, I guess?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Well, it's nice seeing this group of people here. Unfortunately, I wish y'all would've came to meetings over the last year. Since 208, you know, if you guys have been to different meetings, like the planning meeting, where you can watch over what's going on, you're here, you can see what's going on. That way, you may not be in this whole situation you're in, because you would have seen what's going on every month.
That's why there's elected officials to do that for us.
That's why the whole government's in the shape we're in.
So I
You got-
agree.
I'm just saying, I think it's great you guys are here. I just hope you all continue to come to your planning commissions to make sure that what's going on in your community, you know. Because what happens is, if you guys don't go to a planning committee, something comes in, something goes on, 6 months later, you'll look out your back door and Marston's building something again. Township's not gonna call you and say, hey, there, Marston's is building, you better get up here, you know. But once they put that shovel in the ground, it's way too late. But I'm glad you're here, I think it's great, I mean, I just think it's great y'all are here finally, and as a group of people, and looking at what's going on in your neighborhoods.
well, Stanley, I guess that's a good statement you made there, but just remember one thing. When we take a hard line, we don't work with the people, we're not flexible enough, the township's holding them up. In this case, we believe somebody, and we cut them a break,
Oh, no,
and let me tell you,
I've
we
been
got burned.
everything that's going on tonight, I've been
Yeah.
to all those meetings, I've
Yep,
heard,
and,
everything that's going on. I heard.
everything that happened there, by golly, was not the fault of this township, but we've have to be the enforcer, by golly, and you'll learn not to let it happen again. Next guy comes in, well, you did it for him, you did it for this, why can't you do it for me?
But one thing that this group did say is, who enforces?
Yeah,
I mean, I know when I built the store 20-some years ago, I mean, I had all kind of contingencies, I had to plant trees, I had to do this and that. Nobody ever checked. I did it, you know, because my neighbor came in and said I had to. You agreed? Not you, you weren't on the board at the time, but, you know, I did all those contingencies, but nobody ever came back and checked. And that was 22 years ago.
And Stanley, I'd like to just comment on your comment about us not being a part of. I believe that if you look back, we've been in and out of here since 2011. Some party from our organization has been in the meetings to try to bring back to
And
us.
if not in the meetings, in the office.
Yeah, so, you know, if we couldn't make it to that meeting, we did an attempt to actually find out information, coming back to our secretary to get, you know, to try to find out what was going on when we did miss a meeting on a regular basis.
And it made little difference.
I have a question. You talk about how you gave him, you know, you said, we'll give you a chance. Is there any type of like character reference ahead of time before you make these decisions? I mean, he was just kicked out of a different township for similar reasons. So then we'll give you a chance. You're just kicked out of a different township.
just as you guys concerned is here tonight, probably some of the people that are got the concern now at that time are so much in favor of giving him what he wanted. because we were holding them up. We were anti-development. There was an awful lot of heat and leverage put on the supervisors, and that was used, and that was a campaign issue, and that was everything else that took place at that time. Sorry, folks, that's what happens. It was there, and it was well known that that's the route we went. There was people sitting here, which was the majority, that wanted him to have that permit. And beat up on the supervisors and the board. How about it, Cece?
Exactly.
Exactly, to give him that permit, to get him started. And you know, the reference where he, in his past and the whole 9 yards, that the hearings could not be used, we all knew it, and yet you couldn't do anything about it. It wasn't allowed to be introduced as evidence. Okay, so it wasn't that we didn't know what he was, but he came in here, and the people that were sitting out there, they're ready to hang us because we wouldn't give him the permit. We were wrong, believe it or not. Just as much as they're going to say, people say today that you're wrong in this matter or somebody else is wrong in the matter. But I'm glad for you to bring it out because I have nothing to hide in the matter other than how it all came about. And you can say you can blame the supervisors for doing it. What we are guilty of is trying to help someone get along with his business that he's going to bring so much into the township and always brought into us is a heck of a lot of legal expenses and a lot of other things at the present time. So,
And more coming.
and more coming, I'm sure. So that is some of the things whenever you go out here, just like you heard with the lady down there, everybody wanted that building tore down. Solicitor says you're gonna be mad at me. I feel compassion for you, here you are. You're granted another 30 days. I didn't hear anybody say in the audience today we shouldn't do that. Don't do this, don't do that. Nobody, because they weren't affected by that tonight, said anything about that. Why are you gonna do this? So the next time, it's the same thing that happened when he was issued that permit, believing it. Now, we believe these people, which we really have no reason to, I don't believe, because of what we went through to get it to this point.
Has he made made his commitment to the sewer hookup at this time, or do you don't know? And and if not, when is it due?
Well, I think the board members here, the municipal authority can probably tell you that quicker. I guess it's getting close, isn't it?
June 30th is his deadline.
Yep, June 30th
June
is the month.
30th, when's his deadline?
June
Yeah.
30th, which is Monday.
Yes.
June
Monday.
30th, Monday is his,
Monday? Okay.
Monday is his deadline.
I'd like to make a request if he doesn't meet that requirement, I know you're gonna fine him or something. I really don't, you know.
That's not us, that's with the
I don't wanna
municipal
see a
authority.
continuance.
That's with the municipal authority, that's a different matter.
Whole different thing.
Yep, it's a whole different thing. There's one thing I asked. So he's got that deadline and date and he got to hook up. What's he gonna pump through it? Nothing. There's nothing to pump through.
He's had his time.
Does he have the commodes hooked up in the building? Has he got that all tied
Who
in?
knows?
Who knows? Does he?
Nobody's-
At the
nobody
present
knows
time, not that I
anything.
know of. He don't have an occupancy permit to do that, does he, Hal?
No.
He don't have the UCC code inspectors. You think that we're sitting here not watching and taking care of it. Yes, we are. He don't have any of that.
And I requested there not be a continuance if he doesn't have it in place. And then where do you go? Just fine him and let him go on with it? Now, if you don't give him a continuance, I wanna see that building disappear.
Well, that
No
was,
occupancy permit, you know what I mean?
and so
Like
you,
you said,
it
you'd tear our
granted,
house down if it was us.
it was granted to him that he'd make that progress within 10 days to receive the letter. Did I particularly like that? No. But if you don't, and he drags you through New Bloomfield in front of a judge, you're gonna lose, folks.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so,
That's already happened, has it not, Cece?
Yes, it has.
Yes, it has.
Certainly has.
The judge
Quite
overruled him
recently.
on this very thing, on the hookup of that down there, and shot us down. Do you think it's an easy job, folks?
No, I
No?
don't believe that at
Well,
all.
I'll tell you what, it's not an easy job to get that enforcement done. It's not like waving your finger, snapping your finger, and it happens in a minute. And you can take it and do what you want to, and the guy at the end of the line, by golly, that makes that decision, that has the authority to make that decision, can waive it all, take it all away from you, just in a second.
Just that quick.
Yes.
One final question for me is, so if you guys make a motion to send off or Chief Pickles out based on what Solicitor Wagner tells you, what would be the ramifications if he goes out there and sees that they're not meeting their permits?
Nothing.
I guess, I would ask the board here tonight to take into consideration for what Pickles says he can go out there to make a motion to the effect that we do create some enforcement subject to agreement by Solicitor Wagner that it can be done, that we don't drag ourselves in. And that's what I'd like to see done here. It's up to the other two members of the board if they want to do that. You could put that, you could make a motion, by golly, subject to those conditions of his approval.
But do we not have enforcement officers to enforce those permits?
While the permits are active, yes, but if he gets,
Right.
if he does everything according to the UCC and the zoning
They're all
ordinance,
currently active though.
yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we can send,
Once we get them, not all the permits have been issued yet,
okay.
but
And
once that,
And my question, I think here is that an answer is he's got these permits and he's working on those permits.
mhm.
And after he complies, who's gonna monitor for him to go do what he wants to afterwards? That's the
Yeah.
type of enforcement I'm looking at that can we legally do.
Good point,
Because,
good point.
that's the one that
What he's done so far, that
that's what I'm getting at. If he's got these permits and he's meeting that, you can go in there and take a look at it. But when he meets all his requirements, and then go back in there, it's no difference. If there's nobody back in there to watch him, he can sneak out there at night, dig in there, put a septic system in, put a bathroom in out there. If he wants to do that, he'll do that.
that's right.
And who has the authority at that point to go in to see? Unless you know there's something and file a complaint. That's the issue that I need to get squared away with Solicitor Wagner, whether we can randomly go in there and monitor
And
that.
even at that, that seems to be the way it's done, and then you get spanked later and pay your money, and
He doesn't get
then
spanked.
it,
We can only make that assumption that, a lot of
so it
this
doesn't
work
matter
that
whether you
he's
enforce it
done,
or not.
Yeah.
that he has already done it, and then ask for a permit.
Yeah, you can meet those requirements up front. It's after the requirements are met, is what's he gonna do on his own.
And he'll obviously do just what he wants, like he has.
Well, and most of the discussion here has been on what do we do on future, well, what do we do now, what do we do in the future? I'd like to make a recommendation just for us as the board members, that we look at the structure of our office. We examine the structure of our office and how things are being done, and maybe potentially look at reinstating a township manager to give oversight to the office. And I know that brings, if we can structure it where there's strict job descriptions with insight from PSATs, just a recommendation that we look at restructuring the office, that there's more oversight, that these things don't happen in the future in that area also.
Well,
And we
they're
had
using
that,
taxes.
and we had a much bigger mess than what we got right
Taxes, but
now.
what about all the money we're spending in legal fees?
Do your job and you won't have that problem in-house.
Okay, and,
In-house,
In-house.
I agree.
okay.
In-house.
That's the
And can I
problem.
remind you that you were once sitting in this seat?
Absolutely. One person cannot do everything alone.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would really hate to see the day a township manager is reinstituted in this township. There goes the taxes.
You don't know the problems that existed.
Absolutely.
We have another comment from the back
Yes,
row.
go ahead.
Jen.
Since she brought up the questions I asked Brian and Cece last month, after the meeting, I was asked why I didn't ask you a couple.
Sure.
Helen replied to my request. She needed additional 30 days legal review. couple of days later, that's what it wrote to the district attorney. The same day, I got a copy of this letter from the DA.
Already aware of that.
Okay? You signed, you and Helen signed an unsworn affidavit under penalty of perjury that the letter was specifically for you.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm glad you brought that up, Mr.
why
Fickus.
the letter was to Board of Supervisors?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't CC and Brian get a copy?
Well, I'm just glad you brought that up. The letter was faxed into this township from the DA long before I received that letter, and she had the information. You tell me why. Right there it is, Mr. Fickles, stamped and into this township.
But
That's why, because she did not tell the truth.
you
That letter's
signed-
there.
You signed.
And let me tell you something about that letter. Everybody's so concerned about that, and I've taken that letter all the way through. And I have been told that I handled it in the proper manner. It went from my hand to the attorneys to where it was supposed to go.
I'm
And it was
saying-
not denied. It came here first. Why didn't she put a copy in his bin and his
I'm
bin?
not saying you didn't handle it correctly.
No. What
I
about
am
the...
asking-
Who
I
had
am
the
asking-
information first in this township, Mr. Fickles? Who had the information in this township? You say, why wasn't it put in the bin? Who had the information first?
I'm just asking. It was
Who
you.
had the information first to put it in our bins?
Well, I don't know that. I do
She
not
did.
know. Okay.
The day before my letter came,
But you signed.
and she burned it.
You signed an affidavit, penalty of perjury, that the letter was strictly for you.
And it was addressed to me.
No, it was addressed to the Board of
The
Supervisors.
letter was
The
addressed
letter
to
said
Board
that,
of
but not the
Supervisors.
envelope.
The envelope was not.
The envelope was
But
not.
the contents was to the Board of Supervisors.
And that's right. And so when it come in here and was stamped by her, and there's her stamp a day before I got my letter.
But why would you sign an affidavit if it was strictly for you?
It was, and that's what it was addressed to.
Well, the
Why
facts-
didn't she distribute the
facts
letter?
did- The facts didn't. come in-
She denies she ever saw it.
The facts didn't come in an envelope, and it was addressed to the Board of Supervisors.
Was I ever told it was faxed in here?
How would I know that?
Well, how would you know that? How would she deny it?
I
She
have a
denied
letter
here,
from the
she
district
denied here
attorney.
tonight that she ever
I
had.
have a letter from the district attorney that it was faxed and mailed
You're daggone right, it was faxed mail and faxed in first.
to the Board of Supervisors.
That's
The
correct.
other two supervisors didn't know
That's
anything.
correct. So why, Helen, didn't you put that fax like you always do and all that information in his bin and his bin?
Oh, wouldn't have been mine, it would have been CC's.
Huh?
Would have been CC's.
Oh, Cece's, yes. Why? Because when questioned, she opened my letter and taped it back shut and said she didn't read it.
Why would the envelope be addressed differently than who it was addressed to in the letter?
Well, you know, you don't want me to get in. This lady may lose her job here yet tonight. And I'm telling you, she has a bad habit of doing what she did. There's another letter years ago that says right on the front of it, I opened but did not read, Helen. And that letter right there was addressed strictly to
Right
the
now,
chairman of the
you-
board, to the supervisors, and it also involved another police matter of a most serious matter.
Should you be discussing personnel, her personnel problems with us?
No, you brought it up, and I have nothing to hide about it. You brought it up, and you wanted to know why. I'm telling you why.
I just wanted to
You
know.
now know.
Why the other two supervisors were not aware of the letter.
Why weren't they aware of the letter? Because she didn't tell him, and I passed the letter on properly. What I did there when I
So
read
there's
that
no
was
communication. You didn't ask them if they had a copy of the letter. You got a copy.
because
of
I
it.
assumed that they already had it. That
You
was
can't
bad.
assume.
Yes, I did.
You can't.
It said on there that it was faxed in. It was faxed in first.
But you can't-
Faxed in first.
You can't assume that things were getting.
Cece, did you get notified?
No,
No, and it was faxed into this office.
no, did not.
Faxed into this office and denied it ever came in. Denied it never come in. I was told I handled that properly the whole way through. You can dispute that with whoever you want. I did what was proper. I didn't like what I saw, and anything that I'd done but taking that letter elsewhere was in
Well,
support of that
Why would
DA.
you assign an affidavit under penalty of perjury that that letter was specifically for you?
Because it was specifically addressed to me.
The facts wasn't.
Well, I forwarded the letter. I opened it up and looked at it. I thought, good, we got a fax. We already got it in our township. Helen had a copy of that letter. Why would you sign it, Helen? Why would you sign it? Because you denied we even had it. Sorry, folks. You want it out there? I'm willing to throw it out there. I have nothing to hide. Not a bit, do I?
Okay, well, in closing, back to,
What I find unusual is that you make a right to request to give to the DA to get that letter, when the highest review court said that that information, by golly, was not to be given out in Harrisburg, that it was right to know information to be protected.
No.
So he done what he wanted to do, and we done what we did, and it was upheld by a court.
Before she got back to me, before the appeal was made to the state, I had already had the letter.
I understand that, Mr. Fickles, it's not unknown.
But what I'm saying is,
So don't play your games that you didn't know nothing about it like you tried to say and put somebody in a bad situation. That's all you've done.
you just said that I put the appeal, the right to know in after the state said.
No, I did say after, I said you put a right to know in and he gave you the letter. At whatever time, so he gave it to you. But what I'm saying is that what he gives out to the public on a right to know, the highest court that reviews that in Harrisburg, by golly, supported the township and said we were right. So in my mind, the DA gave out information that shouldn't have been out there.
It was a right to know attorney, which if you want to appeal it, you can appeal it.
Well, you appealed it, and they upheld our appeal in Harrisburg that we were right.
I could appeal his decision,
Okay?
which I had.
And the last decision come back, says end of it, no more, it's done.
No, it was not.
Ah, yes it did.
His decision was not appealed.
Okay. I read the last decision, it came back in the right to know. Okay. Anything else, Karen? Let's move on.
just the last 3 points, just to make sure that you have my and the co-citizens' concerns in place to go back to Mr. Wagner. The findings that we found from our right to know request that we got concerning the court case on a potential appeal by the Board of Supervisors against Morrison. We would like the board to talk about following up on buffer zoning and noise control options here in the future, and the police monitoring of the conditional use property and other properties in Morrison. 3 strikes are out. That's all I have, sir. Thank you
Okay,
respectfully.
thank you. I make a motion, we adjourn.
I second the motion.
Motion made with a second. All those in favor, give it a by saying aye. Have it.
Everything else I had.
It covers pretty much
Here, right here, are copies of the notices I sent out that were up there with the dates they were in the papers.
Okay.
His letter? No.
Can I get copies of those? Does it cost me any money?
No, that could be copies.
Because the reason, again, we go back to sometimes we've been working on